Mr. Chairman, thank you. I wasn't going to do a John Redwood and pretend that I understood what you were saying, not for one moment. Good morning. The first thing I want to say is how sad we are in UKIP Wales to have recently lost Sir Di Llewellyn. Sir Di, a member of ours, an active supporter of ours, and quite simply one of the most colourful characters that I've ever met in my life, and we're very sad at the loss of Di and his very premature death at the age of 62. And to go out and to say to people that whatever party you normally support, if you agree with our aims, then lend UKIP your vote in these elections. And this is the first time that I've been able to stand up at any election and say hand on heart that the UKIP position now represents a majority view across the United Kingdom. Recent polls have showed that now 2/3 of people want a different relationship with the European Union, and a recent BBC poll on the Andrew Neil Daily Politics programme showing a clear 55% want to leave the EU but to maintain close trading links. So we do have a very large potential audience out there that agree with our opinions, and what we've got to do is to find a campaign that is big enough and sound enough and uses the right messages to attract them, not to vote for their normal parties, but to lend us their vote. We're going to be fighting this election very much on the issue of money, and you can see the launch theme today, which is to say no to paying a membership fee of £40 million a day to the EU. And we'll be running and fighting on this issue over the course of the next couple of weeks, mindful as we are that there is a budget on Wednesday which is likely to be the most discussed budget probably since World War II. And the whole issue of money is going to be a huge theme, in our opinion, during this campaign. We do object to paying a membership fee of £40 million a day, and we're mindful, of course, that that figure is due to rise by 60% over the course of the next 5 years, which is all to do with Tony Blair's somewhat unsuccessful renegotiation of the Common Agricultural Policy and the British rebate, and we'll be making the point that we shouldn't really be paying a penny piece into an organisation whose accounts have not been signed off by the auditors for the last 14 years in a row. And to help us with that, one of our candidates in the South East is the European Union's former chief accountant, who was sacked, of course, by Neil Kinnock, so there's the Welsh connection, and Martha Andreasen is going to get elected for us as an MEP, and we think it's a good thing to say to the people of this country, vote UKIP, send Martha Andreasen to Brussels, so you can actually find out what's happening to your £40 million a day. So money will be important, and we'll move the campaign on to discuss the whole question of who should and should not be able to come to live, work and settle in this country, and whose decision should that be. And one of the great secrets that nobody wants to discuss is that we cannot control our borders, we cannot control who comes to live and work in this country, all the while we're fully paid up members of this European Union. And it's something that nobody wants to talk about, but we are going to, that proves this point. On Thursday, the Romanians issued 1 million passports to people from Moldova. Moldova, the poorest country in the European time zone, where over half the workers earn less than £1 a day, and yet the decision of a Romanian president means that 1 million people from that country now become EU citizens and have the right to come and live in the United Kingdom. And we're going to be pointing out that that whole policy since 2004 has led to a massive oversupply in the unskilled jobs market in this country, and has led to increasing social tensions in many of our towns and cities, and that it does not make sense. In the news today, and there is going to be a council meeting tomorrow, is that the European Commission now want to redraft the rules on asylum, and as far as illegal immigrants into the EU are concerned, Commissioner Barrot said at the weekend that Britain must indeed take her share of the burden. So I think this whole area of British jobs for British workers, of open borders, is going to be a huge, and frankly, I think the key campaigning point in these European elections. Now, I know there's been considerable press speculation, especially in the north of England, as to whether the BNP will do well or do badly, but we should be pointing out to people that you do not need to be tempted by the extremes in politics to believe that you can be a patriotic party that wants to control its own borders. And of our 69 candidates that are standing for us in England, Scotland and Wales, 5 of those candidates are Commonwealth-born immigrants into this country who've taken up British citizenship and who believe in these points as strongly as we can. And so we can really fight very hard on these issues, expose the hypocrisy of the other parties, but do so truly as a non-racist and non-sectarian party. And we'll be urging everybody on that theme of lend us your vote to send a message to Westminster. You know, the Labour Party was elected promising us a referendum on the constitutional treaty. They have broken that promise. The Liberal Democrats were elected to Westminster in 2005, promising us they'd vote for a referendum, and they haven't done so. The position of Plaid, we know very well. They're great supporters of this whole EU system, and the Conservative Party are desperately split on the issue. Something like 75% of Conservative voters feel very much as UKIP feel on these issues, and yet that is not the way that Mr Cameron or Mr Hague appear to be taking the party. So our aim nationally is that last time we beat the Liberal Democrats in the 3rd place. This time we believe we have the potential to beat the governing Labour Party as well. I would remind you that the Labour Party in the last European elections only scored 22% of the vote nationally. That despite the fact that in the middle of the campaign, Tony Blair threw in the offer of a referendum on the treaty. Yes, I know that promise was subsequently broken, but many thought that the act of Blair doing that would in fact help to bolster the Labour vote, but all they got was 22% of the national vote. And I think it's not difficult to see the Labour vote nationally falling down to 15, 16, 17%. And I think we have a chance as UKIP of really humiliating Gordon Brown on this point. And frankly, having broken his promise on the referendum, we think he deserves it. So I've laid out the themes, and I've no doubt one of the questions you will ask is, well, why have we gone for the image of Churchill? Does this reinforce some criticisms that somehow UKIP is a backward-looking party? And I'm expecting those questions. Well, I'll tell you why we've gone for the image of Churchill, and it's something that we test-marketed, and we found that even among the under-30s, the image of Churchill brought very, very positive responses, and above all what it brought from people was the message of strong leadership, of somebody who did stand up for this country, who did stand up for this country's interests, who did fight for us to control our borders, and we believe that the image of Churchill and the message that we're trying to send to Westminster is we want you, our governing parties in Westminster, to stand up for this country, and if you're not prepared to do that, then the very least you can do after the next general election is to give the British people a referendum on this issue so that they can make these decisions for themselves and not have them decided for them on 3-line whips in Westminster. So in Wales, we didn't make it last time. We did get into double figures in the European elections, but this time as part of a very big and a very well-funded, and I hope, well-thought-through campaign on these major themes that affect people's lives, we'll be going hell for leather and doing our very best to get John Buffett elected to the European Parliament. Thank you.